Hello, potential friends and adventurers. I'm Em, and today we are going to talk about how to make your dungeons truly fantastic for your players. Welcome to the DM table. Now, if making a dungeon great already is a feat of balance and engineering, making it fantastic is a work of art. So, let's begin. Starting from this small but incredibly important little piece of the whole proceeding, and that's hype. Now, hype for a incoming dungeon is created through, well, the idea of what the players, the party, what can they expect from setting out to do this deed. Some dungeons come up as surprises. They bust on in, they discover a place, they just sort of stumble onto something and they pass through. But lots of them are not like that. Lots of them have somewhere mentioned reason that the party is investigating the dungeon for. Now, that reason can vary. It can be a reason of necessity, like some villagers being kidnapped and the party feeling somewhat obliged to help, but these are kind of mundane reasons, and whilst they exist and should exist, we should perhaps, for a grand dungeon that you may have planned, have some sort of a superb reason, something of a driving force behind the wishes of the adventurers themselves, something that they say dreams are made of. That's how we start making the dungeon fantastic, even before we approach it, even before we have ever seen it, even before we are seeing the entryway even. So what could this one thing be? What could be driving your adventurers so much to pass through that one grand dungeon that you have prepared? Well, let's think from the position of the adventurers themselves. For example, if something is very relevant to the person in question, both as a character and as a player, then that will really give them something to pursue from their own volition and even desire. For example, if something is hardly to be acquired anywhere else and it does something as crucial as raising one of the key statistics of the person in question, then they will really want to pursue it. So, if this dungeon is some sort of temple of might that will raise strength to everybody that joins, well, even the ones who are not benefiting from that statistic as much will be intrigued, because maybe nowhere else have they heard of such an offer. But, of course, this is sort of more from players' perspective. Some characters do have some motivations like personal growth and training that may overlap with this, but why have one motivation when we can have more? If we can find a spot that fits within the domain of player wishes from multiple angles, then we have achieved pretty great focus for hype. But that is not all. We'll get to more things as we go along that can be hyped. For example, we can still have this Temple of Might. We can still have that strength point waiting for them at the end. Perhaps, I mean. It's a legend, but hype is all about the legend. But also, a old friend, or maybe a group of old friends is also going there. And maybe they'll meet each other at the end. Maybe this is some sort of temple that is a gateway to a hidden valley that allows access to other trainees that have already passed the trial. Maybe not. At any point, though, if a party knows ahead of time that they'll be meeting some characters that they care about, that they wanted to talk more to play more with, to have more interaction together, then if that's a group that waits for them at the goal, then that's personal and character motivation for players in total. And it's an intriguing one as well, since more story grows from this. Having more of these points will bring us greater deal of hype. And now we move to the second stage of approaching the dungeon and hyping it up to be truly fantastic. And that is its unlocking. Say that the party wants to now participate in conquering this dungeon. But is there a huge amount of other adventurers, other people, other participants that also want to do this? Is there a huge demand for access? Are pilgrimages forming all over the world? Are things heating up? Are the rumors spreading? Does the world talk about it? Is this centerpiece of public attention now? Or maybe some sort of secret path of a certain faction that the party is joining and on the path of raising through the ranks? At any rate, there is desire, and that desire is explained, it is explored, it is manifested in the world, and the adventurers can witness it all around them. So they proceed, they climb the mountain, they enter the halls of the Dwarven King, so as to speak to His Majesty about getting a permission to even open the doors of this Cave of Infinity or whatever it is. They will receive the key, but only if trusted. And yes, indeed, to get to such a grand dungeon, maybe they need to pass certain trials or steps in unlocking it. Maybe this is to prove themselves. Maybe this is to obtain the components to open it up. Maybe it's to gain the king's trust, or maybe it's just the rituals for opening the door finally once they have the key. Maybe even all of the above. However, the more glorious the work seems, the more glorious the dungeon grows in the player's imagination. So it becomes greater than it potentially even is. But maybe it is just growing to assume its rightful place as that fantastic, mythical dungeon that we are now talking about forming. So, next step. They're climbing the mountain, they have the key, but the mountainside has camps of other participants, perhaps. Their participation is also in question. Maybe they also have their own keys, or maybe they are just waiting in vain because they have not fulfilled the requirements. However the case may be, they show visually how many have tried, how many wish the fulfillment that is awaiting. They illustrate the time, the effort, the interest. And some of them might be party's rivals. There may be bards singing the songs about this dungeon. There may be many things that are happening. Maybe there are merchants, maybe there's lots of the world gathered around to see who will emerge victorious from the dungeon, if at all somebody emerges after all. Now don't forget, all this can be modified. All this can be fitted to the occasion. There is infinite amount of angles from which you can approach this, but if there is a large hype, a large prerequisite, well, at least in form, at least in seeming so, and then a large, shall we say, effect on the world from all this, then that is stage 3. We are taking in the surroundings that are properly reacting to such a large happening as such a dungeon that we are discussing here. And now, once finally they have unlocked the gate and we are on the next step and within, we should see about valuable pursuits, because, well, when they're in a long dungeon that will take a long time to conquer, the whole activity should be fun and it should be rewarding. Also, it should be perhaps different than the other dungeons in such a regard that somehow monsters are unique and interesting to, well, engage with, to know about, to hear about, to extract resources from. As with the goals of the players, there should be some emergent goals from amongst the monsters and the loot, because now we are dealing with a situation where we want every move to have meaning. Everything the players do, everything that they defeat, everything that they solve should have some sort of miniature reward or victory that means something to them. It should give them something to think about, something to take in, something to take home, perhaps. In any case, it should drive the activity up. Even if they're already, say, linearly pursuing the original reward, these create almost like mini quests and achievements within the dungeon itself. And not that mini quests should be the only quests inside. there should be other quests, from small to maybe larger ones. At any rate, these will create a further sense of wonderful time investment. The players will feel like this is a great place. They're spending their time on a wonderful place that is giving them what they always wanted and more of it, as opposed to it being a place that is giving them something great at the end, but is trading off their work for, well, only reward at the end, nothing in between. So, well, this creates even more hype. It's like all the previous hype was fulfilled, and now they are getting even more than they expected. This is what happens when we have good quests and such that make them explore more and feel more of the situation. But they should also sort of feel optional to an extent, because real exploration is something that happens organically, shall we say, because once you have these quests that feel optional, party can take some, not take others, hunt some monsters, not hunt others, figure out their strategy, figure out their idea of what they want to do and why are things valuable and why are things good for them and which things they like. You don't have to have them pick up everything you set up, because from abundance of choice, they feel that there is everything. They feel that they have filtered through to the best, or at least their own free variant that just gives them the most pleasure. That's why I don't have to worry if not everything is picked up on. It's supposed to be there, so that it lies all around, like treasure in a treasure room, so that when somebody runs towards a glowy sword or a crown, they feel very accomplished for, taking interest in that item and not picking up every single coin off the floor. That's sort of the feeling that happens from this, and more so with the story as it opens up due to these quests and situations and circumstances. Which brings us yet to another step. Now that they're in, well, remember how everybody praised this place and them for being able to enter it? Remember how everything was so mythical to approach? Well, now the pressure is kind of on, because inside there are better professionals than the ones left outside. Inside there are rivals that are stronger than the ones that perhaps just patted each other on the back and wished each other luck out front. Inside there are interests of mighty factions. Inside there are interests of mighty forces. Inside there are things beyond expectations. Inside there are plot twists. So now that they're inside, the hype turns into, well, it gets real. The situation escalates. Everything that got involved into this dungeon now intertwines and reaches out its tentacles to grab the prize and everybody involved as well. Because let's not forget, great talent is power of its own. So as long as there are talented players involved, and players here in the sense of, various sides of power and ability, and your players that are perhaps also talented and powerful and have ability, well, talent is its own treasure. It's highly sought after. It is something that will be either for or against other interests, and so it will be attempted to be absorbed or at least moved out of the way. Not always with lethal force, but always with professional force, I suppose. Well, maybe not always. It's never always, but you know what I mean. And finally in the final step, once they have reached the prize, defeated the rivals, solved the quests, and beaten the dungeon, and they did all that, surviving and making it through to the end, and having the prize to bring home and enjoy the results from. Now the final step is that things are different. Things will always be a bit different, a bit better, and yet maybe a bit more serious or something else. I don't mean the campaign will change in tone, but recognition. This step is called recognition. They will be known as people who have gotten out of the Caves of Eternity. They are, even if this is some sort of secret quest, they are still victorious in something large, and the effects will be felt. They'll know about what happened afterwards, what happened to the world, what happened to the artifact, what happened to them, What did they get more so than just the reward? What is it that awaits them in the future due to this large conquest? What does it mean now being more grown as a person after conquering such a large obstacle and learning all this about your opponent's factions, about your own faction, about opposing factions, about the world, about power, the might, new levels, everything? What does it mean being the person that has conquered their first or maybe second or even third, or who knows how many there are, but has conquered yet another legend to think about? Well, adventurer, if you thought this was unique, maybe you can spare me a click and I could see you here each and every week if you so choose. And if you have something you want to ask, feel free to write in the comments and I'll be answering them. Till next time, I wish you luck on your adventures. Bye.